Hello and welcome to AirgunWeb.com, your home for honest, real-world airgun reviews and information, where we bring you the facts, not fluff. This is episode 6 of our series called Take Aim, which stands for Airgun Information and Maintenance. Today's episode is about PCP rifles, specifically the various options on how to fill them. Before we get started, I want to thank our sponsor Pyramid Air for sponsoring this series. If you're interested in any of these products, simply visit my website, www.airgunweb.com, and look for the Take Aim section of the site. So let's get started. As you may guess, I get most of my ideas for this series from viewer comments and emails. Given the enormous subject matter at our disposal, I don't expect that we'll run short of any ideas anytime soon. One of the most asked questions deals with how to fill a PCP, which stands for Pre-Charged Pneumatic Air Rifle. Before we just jump right in, let's briefly talk about what a PCP rifle is. All guns require some sort of energy to propel their projectiles. Some guns use a spring, some use CO2 gas, others use compressed air. PCP airguns use compressed air which is stored in a reservoir on the gun. This differs from other single-pump or multi-pump airguns in that there is a large volume of pre-charged air which allows for multiple shots between fills. PCP airguns generally represent the top of the airgun food chain for power and accuracy. So how do you get them charged? This is the big question everyone always asks. PCP guns are generally more expensive already, and then there's the challenge of how to fill them. One thing I want to mention right up front, and I get asked this all the time, can I use a shop compressor to fill my PCP airgun? Well, the simple answer is no. Your standard shop compressor tops out at about 150 PSI. Most PCP guns run on about 3,000 PSI, so you are way short of where you need to be. So how do you fill your PCP gun? Let's jump in and take a look at some options. The least expensive way to fill your PCP airgun is to use a simple hand pump. There are several different manufacturers out there. This is an Air Venturi G4 hand pump right here, and I've used it for about 2 years now. I don't use it all the time because I have less strenuous options, but it's always worked well for me. It comes with a standard female 1/8 BSPP end that is compatible with most airgun fill probes or connectors. If you would like to use it to fill multiple guns quickly and easily, I suggest that you equip it with the female Air Venturi quick disconnect fitting. From there you can make just about any fill probe or adapter compatible by adding the male quick disconnect end to them. Now each gun is going to be different, but you can bet that it will take about 10 strokes or more to raise the pressure in your gun by 100 PSI. So you can imagine that it can become hard work very quickly. Another thing to consider with a hand pump is that you need weight, not strength, to get up to 3,000 PSI. If you don't weigh around 200 pounds or more, you may not be able to get past 24 to 2,500 PSI. So what are our other options? The most practical option is to use a SCUBA tank. Most SCUBA tanks fill to 3,000 PSI and store 80 cubic feet of air. That's a lot of air. Generally, they're going to come equipped with what's called a K valve, but some tanks may have some other types of valves. But since the most common is a K valve, we'll look at how to put that one to work. This tank right here is a standard 3,000 PSI, 80 cubic foot aluminum tank, and it sells for about $250 at pyramidair.com. I've seen some tanks out there for less, but make sure, especially if you're looking to get a used tank, that you get one with a fresh hydro and a fresh visual inspection. These have to be current or the SCUBA shop will not fill your tank. eBay is a place most people ask me about, and on occasion you can find a pretty good deal. Most of the time the tanks are older and they're in need of a hydro testing and visual inspection. This can run $50 to $75 or so be careful when you go looking at used tanks. The best place to find a deal is at your local SCUBA shop, if you have one. Our local shop sells used tanks for about $150, ready to go. It's a great, reliable way to get what you need safely and ready to roll. Once you have your tank, you need something that will go from the tank to your gun. Now I have this Air Venturi fill kit right here, and on one end we have the part that fits to the tank, and on the other end we have a female 1/8 BSPP connector, just like the hand pump. This is a very common connector and should take most probes and fittings. Again, I prefer to fit mine with the quick disconnect fittings so that I can quickly fill multiple guns. This setup right here with the quick disconnect fitting runs about $90. I know this adds a lot to an already expensive air gun, but once you have it, you're all set for just about any PCP gun out there. I've been able to get about 20 usable fills from my 3000 PSI tank. I say usable because after the first few top-offs, the SCUBA tank's pressure starts to drop below 3000 PSI, so subsequently you don't get a full charge in your gun. Now each gun's going to be a little different. My Marauders do really well between 1200 and 2600 PSI, so I get a lot of fills from my tank. Once my SCUBA tank drops below 2400 PSI, I set it aside for my next trip to the SCUBA shop. So we've talked about it, but how do you do it properly? I'm talking about adding the quick disconnect fittings, or for that matter, the factory fitting to your fill device. It's really pretty easy, but you will need a few tools and some supplies. First, you need some plumber's tape. This stuff right here is PCP Gold. It's available at just about any hardware store and it will become your best friend. Next, you're going to need some wrenches and possibly a small vise. I like using a small vise because it's that third hand I always wanted. Now, the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and put the hose in the vise. Then you're going to wrap the fitting with 3 or 4 layers of plumber's tape and begin to screw it in. Wrap this up. Okay, so once you've gone as far as you can by hand tightening, you get your wrench out and go ahead and finish it off. Now, you want to make it tight enough to work, but not so tight you break things. So if you're concerned, just take your fittings to the SCUBA shop and they should be able to do this for you. That should do it. Now, let's say you have an adapter that you want to make work with that end. This is the old style Air Force adapter, and it's fitted with that same sort of end, well, the male version or male end of your the end that comes on these hoses. So what you need is this little adapter right here, where you're going to have the same procedure. You're going to take your adapter, put it in the vise, wrap it, a little bit of this plumber's tape. Probably should have done the tape before. Screw on your end. Tighten it with a wrench. And now you've converted this, this adapter that used to have to go directly to the hose. Now it will actually work with the quick disconnect. What's really cool is not only will it work with that, you can also go directly to your rifle. So, the usefulness of these quick disconnects is pretty obvious. You really want to get set up with these. The last product we're going to look at today is a new product from Air Venturi. It is the carbon fiber scuba tank with a premium valve and an auxiliary pressure gauge. What makes this special is that it takes 4,500 PSI versus only 3,000 PSI. This equates to many more rifle fills from a single tank. With our standard 3,000 PSI scuba tank, we only get a handful of full fills before we start seeing the pressure drop below 3,000 PSI. Because this tank is filled to 4,500 PSI, it takes a long time just to get to 3,000 PSI. In fact, I've been using this one for a while and I'm just getting to 4,000 PSI. There are a couple other things that make this a really sweet setup. The valve is a special valve that shows the pressure in the tank. This is great for keeping track of your air supply. The next is the included fill setup. It comes with a quick disconnect already attached, and Air Venturi includes the accessory pressure gauge as well. Perhaps the best part of this tank is that it only weighs about 18 pounds when full. This is a huge difference compared to the aluminum tanks that weigh in at about 48 pounds when full. Which would you rather carry around? All this does come at a price, however. The Air Venturi carbon fiber tank fill kit and auxiliary pressure gauge comes in at $695. If you're serious about PCP Airguns, this tank is a really nice setup. Regardless of which method you choose, it all comes down to filling your airgun. By utilizing the quick disconnect, you can set up just about any fitting to be compatible. Some guns come already set up for the quick disconnect. Benjamin Marauder Rifle, Benjamin Marauder Pistol, and the Benjamin Discovery are just some good examples. Other rifles may need additional adapters. Here's an example of a fitting for a Walther Dominator that's been adapted for the quick disconnect. Where'd that go? Here it is. The rifle comes with this part. I had to buy this part here separate. That converts this DIN connector to the quick disconnect connector. The older style Air Force adapter I've sort of already shown you, and all you need is that little male end that allow you to connect to the female end. Fortunately, some manufacturers like Air Force have released new fittings that are designed for the quick disconnect setup. This is their new fitting, and as you see, it already comes ready to utilize the quick disconnect. This setup makes it really easy to use one fill system across all your guns. Now, no video on filling your PCP gun would be complete without actually filling a PCP gun. Today I'm going to use the Air Force Talon SS. It's got a really neat fill system, and since we've got the new Air Force adapter, we'll use this. I've got my carbon fiber tank, my fill setup, we're ready to go. First thing I'm going to do is remove the tank. I have to say, Air Force has a really cool way of doing their guns here. We're going to install their fill adapter, just like that. Connect it to our quick disconnect fitting. I've got my pressure gauge right here. Now this tank doesn't have a gauge, so this is really important. Make sure that my bleeder valve is shut. I'm going to slowly open the valve. When that tank hits 3,000 PSI, I'll shut off the supply. It's very important to fill this very slowly. If you fill too quickly, you can actually overheat things, so you want to go slowly. And you're just about there. Done. Alright, now this gauge is reading exactly 3,000 PSI. Bleed it off, disconnect, and you're good to go. You put this right back on the gun. All there is to it. Well, this wraps up another episode of Take Aim. I hope that you all have learned a little bit more about what it takes to fill your PCP Airgun. I'd like to thank Pyramid Air for providing our supplies and products for this episode. I also want to thank Air Force for providing this Talon SS. Now, expect to see a full review of the Talon SS in October. please be sure to visit my site, www.airgunweb.com, for a list of all the items in this video along with related links. Until next time, this is Rick Utzler with AirgunWeb.com. Thanks again for watching.